Oh, yeah. We had 28 plus crew. I mean, we had almost 50 kids in the summer play. It was awesome. Maddie was in it. Did you have fun? What? Where are you going to go to school? Go tell the guys that we want to start. Tell the guys in the changing room that we need to start. It's my office over here. All right. Shh. We're going to get started. Turn that spotlight off me for a second. Caden, turn the spotlight off. Thank you. We're waiting for the guys. While we're waiting for the guys, this is your last practice in here. I am encouraging you to try to watch your entrances. Again, I said this on Monday. Watch your entrances. If you're coming from this side, use the hallway. The door is open. There's not enough room in that hallway for 12 of you to stand, but you can use the outside hallway. If you're coming in on this one, you can use that costume room. I'm not telling you that you can't be in here, but I'm encouraging that you aren't in here. There's a monitor in this costume room.
Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations proudly present Orson Welles and the BC Theatre on air in The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells.
And star of these broadcasts, Orson Welles.
We now know that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched by intelligences far greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own. We now know that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize and study the transient creatures which swarm and multiply in a single drop of water. With infinite complacence, people went to and fro about the earth, serene in their assurance of their dominion over this small spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. And yet, across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that are to our minds as ours are to the beasts in the jungle, intellects vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly but surely drew their plans against us. In the 39th year of the 20th century came this great disillusionment. It was near the end of October. The war scare was over, business was better, more men were back at work, and sales were picking up. On this particular evening, October 30th, the Crosley service estimated that 32 million people were listening in on their radios.
For the next 24 hours, not much change in temperature. A slight atmospheric disturbance of undetermined origin has been located over Nova Scotia, causing a low-pressure area to move over the northeastern states. There will be lots of rain and winds of light gale force. Maximum temperature 66, minimum 48. This weather report has been brought to you by the Government Weather Bureau. We take you now to the Meridian Room at the Hotel Park Plaza, where you'll be entertained by the music of Ramon Recao and his orchestra.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the Meridian Room Hotel Plaza in New York City, we bring to you the music of Ramon Recao and his orchestra. Now, Ramon Recao leads off with La Cumbracita.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt our broadcast of dance music to bring you a special bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. At 20 minutes before 8 Central Time, Professor Farrell of Mount Jennings Observatory, Chicago, Illinois, reported observing several explosions of incandescent gas occurring at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The spectroscope indicates this gas to be hydrogen and moving towards Earth with enormous velocity. Professor Pearson of Princeton Observatory confirms Farrell's observation and describes the phenomenon as, quote, like a jet of blue flame shot from a gun, unquote. We return you now to the music of Ramon Recao and his orchestra. Playing. And now, a tune that never loses favor, the ever-popular Stardust, Ramon Recao and his orchestra. Ladies and gentlemen, following on the news given in our bulletin a moment ago, the Government Meteorological Bureau has requested that the large observatories of the country keep an astronomical watch on any further disturbances occurring on the planet Mars. Due to the unusual events, sorry, one second. Line. Due to the unusual nature of this occurrence, we have arranged an interview with a noted astronomer, Professor Pearson, who will give us his views on this event. In a few moments, we will take you to the Princeton Observatory. God. In a few moments, we will take you to the Princeton Observatory in Princeton, New Jersey. We return you until then to the music of Ramon Recao and his orchestra. We are ready now to take you to the Princeton Observatory, where Carla Phillips, our commentator, will interview Professor Richard Pearson, famous astronomer. We take you now to Princeton, New Jersey.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carla Phillips. Right now, I am standing in a semicircular room, pitch black, except for an oblong split in the ceiling. Through this opening, I can see a sprinkling of stars that cast a kind of frosty glow over the intricate mechanism. The clockwork that you hear is the vibration of our clockwork. I ask you to be patient, ladies and gentlemen, during any interference that may occur during our interview. Professor Pearson is in constant watch over the heavens, and he may be interrupted by telephone or other communications. Professor, may I begin our questions?
At any time, Mrs. Phillips.
Professor, could you please tell our listening audience exactly what you see as you view the planet Mars through your telescope?
Nothing unusual at the moment. A red disk swimming in a blue sea. Quite distinct now because Mars happens to be at the point closest to Earth. In opposition, as we call it.
In your opinion, what do these transverse stripes signify, Professor?
Not canals, I can assure you, Mrs. Phillips.
I see.
Although that is the popular conjecture of those who believe Mars to be inhabited. Though from a purely scientific standpoint, these stripes merely resemble the atmospheric conditions peculiar to the planet.
Then you're convinced, as a scientist, that living intelligence as we know it does not exist on Mars.
I'd say the chances against it are 1,000 to 1.
And Professor, how can you account for these regular gas eruptions occurring on the surface of a planet?
Mrs. Phillips, I cannot account for it.
By the way, Professor, for the benefit of our listeners, how far is Mars from Earth?
Approximately 40 million miles.
That seems a safe enough distance.
Oh, thank you.
Just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Professor Pearson has just been handed a letter. While he reads it, let me remind you that we are speaking to you from the Observatory of Princeton, New Jersey, with world-famous astronomer, Professor Pearson. Oh, just a moment, please. Professor Pearson has just handed me the letter which he has just received. Professor, may I read the letter to our listening audience?
Certainly, Mrs. Phillips.
Ladies and gentlemen, I shall now read you a wire addressed to Professor Pearson from Dr. Gray at the National History Museum, New York. Quote, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Seismograph registered shock of almost earthquake intensity found within 20-mile radius of Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Signed, Lloyd Gray, National History Museum, New York. Unquote. Professor, does this occurrence have anything to do with the disturbances found on Mars?
Hardly. This is probably a meteor of unusual size, and its occurrence at this time is merely a coincidence. However, we shall have a search party as soon as daylight permits.
Thank you, Professor. Let me remind you that for the past 10 minutes you've been listening to Professor Pearson, noted astronomer, from the Observatory of Princeton, New Jersey. We take you now to our New York studio.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. Toronto, Canada. Professor Morse of Macmillan University reports observing a total of 3 explosions on the planet Mars between the hours of 7:45 p.m. and 9:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This confirms earlier reports received from American observatories. Now, near home comes a special bulletin from Trenton, New Jersey. It It is reported that at 8:50 p.m., a huge flaming object, believed to be a meteorite, fell on a farm in the neighborhood of Grover's Mill, New Jersey, 22 miles from Trenton. The flash in the sky was seen within a radius of several hundred miles, and the noise of the impact was heard as far north as Elizabeth, New Jersey. We have dispatched a special mobile unit to the scene and will have our commentator, Carla Phillips, give you a word picture as soon as she arrives there from Princeton. For now, we take you to the Hotel Martinet in Brooklyn, where Bobby Millette and his orchestra are offering a program of dance music. We take you now to Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carla Phillips out of the Wilmouth Farm in Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Professor Pearson and I made the 11 miles in mere 10 minutes. Well, I can't see much of it now. Well, I guess that's it over there. I don't know how to explain this scene to you. Like something out of a modern Arabian Nights. What I can see of the object doesn't look much like a meteor, at least not the meteors I've seen. It has more of a cylindrical shape with a diameter of, what would you say, Professor?
Approximately 30 minutes.
30 meters. The metal on the sheath is somewhat of a yellowish white. Curious spectators now are pressing forward, despite the police trying to keep them back. They're getting in front of my line of vision. Could you move to one side, please?
One side there! One side!
While the police are trying to rope off all of the visitors, I will speak with Mr. Wilmoth, owner of the farm here. He may have some interesting facts to add. Step closer, please, Mr. Wilmoth. Will you please tell us exactly about what you saw when this visitor dropped in your backyard? Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Wilmoth.
Well, I was listening to the radio.
Closer and louder, please.
Pardon me?
Louder, please, and closer.
Well, yes, ma'am. I was listening to the radio. That professor fellow was yapping on and on about Mars.
Yes, and then what happened?
Well, as I was saying, I was listening to the radio kind of halfways and just dozing off a little.
And then you saw something?
Not first off. I heard something.
And what did you hear?
This kind of hissing noise, like this. It was like a 4th of July rocket.
Yes, and then what happened?
Well, I turned my head out the window, would have swore I was asleep and dreaming.
Well, were you frightened, Mr. Wilmoth?
Well,
Oh, sorry. Yes? Yes?
I seen this kind of greenish streak in the sky. Then singo, something smacked the ground and knocked me clear out of my chair.
Well, were you frightened, Mr. Wilmoth?
Well, I ain't quite sure now. I reckon I was a little bit riled.
Thank you, Mr. Wilmoth.
Do you want me to tell you some more?
No, that's plenty. Thank you very much, Mr. Wilmoth. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard Mr. Wilmoth, owner of the farm where this thing has fallen. I wish I could convey the atmosphere of this fantastic scene. Hundreds of cars are now parked. They throw an enormous spotlight on where the thing has fallen. Some of the more daring souls are now veering near the edge. Their silhouettes stand out against the metal sheen. One person wants to touch the thing. They're getting into an argument with police. The police wins. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's something I haven't mentioned to you yet in all of this excitement. You may have already heard it on your radios. Listen, please. Can you hear it? It's a sort of curious humming sound coming from inside the object. Listen. Now we're not more than 25 feet away. Oh, Professor Pearson!
Yes, Mrs. Schultz?
What's the meaning of the screeching noise coming from inside the thing?
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
Just a minute. Something is happening. The top is beginning to unravel. The top is beginning to rotate. It must be hollow.
Look, it's moving! It's coming out of it!
Good heavens! Something is starting to come out from the top. Someone or something. Oh no! Get out of the way! Good heavens! Something's coming out of the shadow like a gray snake. And there comes another one.
And another one. And another one. They look like tentacles to me. I can see the whole thing's body now. It's large like a bear, and it glistens like wet leather. But ladies and gentlemen, this face is indescribable. It has eyes that are black like a serpent, and a mouth that's V-shaped that has rimless lips that seem to quiver and pulsate. The creature isn't moving much. It seems to be held down by possibly gravity or something. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll have to wait to give you more detail until I can get a closer look. Just hold on a minute, please. We are bringing you an eyewitness account of what is happening on the Wilmeth Farm, Grover's Mill, New Jersey. We return you now to Carla Phillips at Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
Ladies and am I on? Ladies and gentlemen, here I am, standing aback of the stone wall that adjoins Mr. Wilmot's garden. More and more state police have arrived. The captain is speaking with someone now. I think it is, it's Professor Pearson. Yes, it is. Now Professor Pearson moves away from the object, and one police person emerges from the crowd. They're holding a pole with a white handkerchief, a flag of truce. If those creatures know what that means, what anything means, something's happening! A humped shape rises out. Against it, I see a mirror. Oh no, there's a jet of flame. It goes right onto the oncoming men. Good heavens, they're bursting into flame! The whole field's caught fire. The woods, the barns, the gas tanks of automobiles. It's coming right this way, 20 yards to my right.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Grover's Mill. Evidently, there is some difficulty with our field's transmission. However, we will return to that point at the earliest opportunity. In the meantime, I have a bulletin from San Diego, California. Professor Indelkoffer, speaking at a dinner of the Astronomical Society, expressed the opinion that the explosions on Mars are undoubtedly nothing more than severe volcanic disturbances on the surface of the planet. We continue now with our piano interlude. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been handed a message that came in from Grover's Mill by telephone. Just one moment, please. At least 40 people, including 6 state troopers, lie dead in a field east of the village of Grover's Mill, their bodies burned and distorted beyond all possible recognition. The next voice you will hear will be that of Brigadier General Montgomery Smith, commander of the state militia at Trenton, New Jersey. I have been requested by the governor of New Jersey to place the counties of Mercer and Middlesex as far as west as Princeton and east to Jamesburg under martial law. No one will be permitted to enter this area except by special pass issued by state or military authorities. 4 companies of state militia are proceeding from Trenton to Grover's Mill and will aid in the evacuations of homes within the range of military operations. Thank you. You have just been listening to General Montgomery Smith, commander of the state militia at Trenton. In the meantime, further news on the catastrophe at Grover's Mill has been coming in. The strange creatures, after unleashing their deadly assault, crawled back into their pit and made no attempt to prevent the efforts of firemen to retrieve the bodies and extinguish the flames. The combined fire departments of Mercer County are working to extinguish the flames which menace the entire countryside. We have been been unable to establish any communication with our mobile unit at Grover's Mill, but we hope to return you there at the earliest possible moment. In the meantime, we take you to... Just one moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I have just been informed that we have finally established communication with an eyewitness of the tragedy. Professor Pearson has been located at a farmhouse near Grover's Mill, where he has established an emergency observation unit. As a scientist, he will give you his explanation of the calamity. The next voice you will hear will be that of Professor Pearson's, brought to you by Direct Wire. Professor Pearson.
Of the creatures in the rocket cylinder at Grover's Mill, I can offer you no authoritative information, either to their nature, their origin, or their purposes here on Earth. Of their destructive instrument, I might venture some conjectural explanation. For lack of a better term, I shall refer to this mysterious weapon as a heat ray. It's all too evident that these creatures have scientific knowledge far in advance of our own. It is my guess that they are able to generate an intense heat in a chamber of practically absolute no conductivity. With this heat, they can then project it in a parallel beam against any object they choose by means of a polished parabolic mirror of unknown composition, much as a lighthouse projects a beam of light using a mirror. This is my conjecture of the heat ray.
Thank you, Professor Pearson. Ladies and gentlemen, here is a bulletin from Trenton. It is a brief statement informing us that the charred body of Carla Phillips has been identified in a Trenton hospital. Now here's a bulletin from Washington, D.C. The Office of the Director of the National Red Cross reports 10 units of Red Cross emergency workers have been assigned to the state militia stationed outside Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Now here is a bulletin from the State Police, Princeton Junction. The fires at Grover's Mill and vicinity are now under control. Scouts report all quiet in the pit, and there is no sign of life appearing from the mouth of the cylinder. Now here is a special statement from Mr. Harry McDonald, Vice President in charge of operations.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We have received a request from the State Militia at Trenton to place at their disposal our entire broadcasting facilities. In view of the severity of this situation, and believing that radio has a responsibility to serve in the public interest at all times, we are turning over our facilities to State Militia at Trenton. Thank you.
We take you now to the state militia stationed outside Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
This is Captain Lansing of the Signal Corps, attached to the state militia, now engaged in military operations in the vicinity of Grover's Mill. Situation arising from the reported presence of certain individuals of unidentified nature is now under complete control. The cylindrical object, which lies in a pit directly below our position, is surrounded on all sides by 8 battalions of infantry, without heavy field pieces, but adequately armed with rifles and machine guns. All cause for alarm, if such cause ever existed, is now entirely unjustified. The things, whatever they are, do not even venture to poke their heads above the pit. I can see their hiding place plainly in the glare of the searchlights here. With all the reported resources, these creatures can scarcely stand up against heavy machine gun fire. Anyway, it's an interesting outing for the troops. I can make out their khaki uniforms crossing back and forth in front of the lights. Looks almost like a real war. There appears to be a slight smoke in the woods bordering the Millstone River. Probably fire started by campers. Well, we ought to see some action soon. One of the companies is deploying on the left flank. A quick thrust and it'll all be over. Now wait a minute. I see something on top of the cylinder. No, it's nothing but a shadow. Now the troops are on the edge of Wilmouth Farm. 7,000 armed men closing in an old metal tube. A tub, rather. Wait, that wasn't a shadow. It's something moving. Solid metal. Kind of a shield-like affair rising up out of the cylinder. It's going higher and higher. Why, it's standing on legs. Actually rearing up on a sort of metal framework. Now it's reaching above the trees and the searchlights are on it. Hold on!
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that these strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars. The battle which took place tonight at Grover's Mill has ended in one of the most startling defeats ever suffered by an army in modern times. 7,000 men armed with rifles and machine guns pitted against a single fighting machine of the invaders from Mars. 120 known survivors. The rest strewn over the battle area from Grover's Mill to Plainsboro, crushed and trampled to death under the metal feet of the monster or burned to cinders by its heat ray. The monster is now in control of the middle section of New Jersey and has effectively cut the state through its center. Communication lines are down from Pennsylvania to the Atlantic Ocean. Railroad tracks are torn and service from New York to Philadelphia discontinued, except routing some of the trains through Allentown and Phoenixville. Highways to the north, south, and west clogged with frantic human traffic. Police and Army reserves are unable to control the mad flight. By morning, the fugitives will have swelled Philadelphia, Camden, and Trenton. It is estimated to twice their normal population. Martial law prevails throughout New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania. At this time, we take you to Washington for a special broadcast on the national emergency. The Secretary of the Interior.
Citizens of the nation, I shall not try to conceal the gravity of the situation that confronts the country, nor the concern of your government in protecting the lives and property of its people. However, I wish to impress upon you, private citizens and public officials, all of you, the urgent need of calm and resourceful action. Fortunately, this formidable enemy is still confined to a comparatively small area, and we may place our faith in the military to keep them there. In the meantime, placing our faith in God, we must continue our duties, each and every one of us, so that we may face this destructive adversary with a nation united, courageous, and consecrated to the preservation of human supremacy on this earth. I thank you.
You have just heard the Secretary of the Interior speaking from Washington. Bulletins too numerous to read are piling up in the studio here. We are informed that the central portion of New Jersey has been blacked out from radio communication due to the effect of heat ray upon power lines and electrical equipment. Here is a special bulletin. New York. Cables have been received from English, French, and German scientific bodies, offering assistance. Astronomers report continued gas outbursts at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The majority voiced the opinion that the enemy will be reinforced by additional rocket machines. There have been several attempts made to locate Professor Pearson of Princeton, who has observed Martians at close range. It is feared he was lost in the recent battle. Langenfield, Virginia. Scouting planes report 3 Martian machines visible above the treetops, moving north towards Somerville, with population fleeing ahead of them. The heat ray is not in use. Although advancing at express train speeds, the enemy picks its way carefully. They seem to be making a conscious effort to avoid the destructions of cities and countryside. However, they stop to uproot power lines, bridges, and railroad tracks. Their apparent objective is to crush resistance, paralyze communication, and disorganize human society. Here's a bulletin from Basking Ridge, New Jersey. Coon hunters have stumbled upon a second invading unit, similar to the first, embedded in the Great Swamp, 20 miles south of Morristown. Army field pieces are proceeding from Newark to blow up the second invading unit before the cylinder can be opened and the fighting machine rigged. They are taking up a position in the foothills of the Watchung Mountains. Another bulletin from Langenfield, Virginia. Scouting planes report Martian machines, now 3 in number, increasing speed northward, kicking over houses and trees in their evident haste to form a conjunction with their allies south of Morristown. The machines were also sighted by a telephone operator east of Middlesex, within 10 miles of Plainfield. Here's a bulletin from Winston Field, Long Island. A fleet of Army bombers carrying heavy explosives flying north in pursuit of enemy. Scouting planes act as guides. They keep the speeding enemy in sight. Just a moment, please, ladies and gentlemen. We've run special wires to the artillery lines in adjacent villages to give you direct reports into the zone of the advancing enemy. First, we take you to the battery of the 22nd Field Artillery, located in the Watchung Mountains.
Range, 32 meters.
32 meters.
Projection, 39 degrees.
39 degrees.
Fire!
140 yards to the right, sir.
Shift range, 31 meters.
31 meters.
Projection, 37 degrees.
37 degrees.
Fire!
Can't see the shell land, sir. They're letting off a smoke.
Quick, get the range. Shift 30 meters.
30 meters.
Projection, 27 degrees.
27 degrees.
Fire!
The smoke is coming near, so
What is it?
a black smoke, so lying close to the ground, coming this way. It's moving fast.
Put on gas masks. Get ready to fire. Shift to 24 meters.
24 meters.
Projection, 24 degrees.
24 degrees.
Fire!
Still can't see, so the smoke's even nearer.
Get the range.
24 meters.
24 meters.
Projection, 22 degrees.
22 degrees.
Army bombing plane V-843 off Bayonne, New Jersey. Lieutenant Vogt commanding 8 bombers. Reporting to Commander Fairfax, Langham Field. This is Vogt reporting to Commander Fairfax. Langham Field, enemy tripod machines now in sight. Reinforced by 3 machines from the Morristown cylinder. 6 altogether. 1 machine partially crippled. Believed hit by shell by enemy gun in Watchung Mountains. Guns now appear silent. A heavy black fog is hanging close to the earth. Of extreme density, nature unknown. No sign of heat ray. Enemy now turns east, crossing Passaic River into the Jersey Marshes. Another straddles the Pulaski Skyway. Evident objective is New York City. They're pushing down a high-tension power station. The machines are close together now, and we're ready to attack. Planes circling, ready to strike. 1,000 yards and we'll be over the first. 800 yards, 600, 400, 200. There they go! The giant arm raised. Green flash, they're spraying us with flames! No chance to release bombs. Only one thing left. Drop on them, plane and all. We're diving on the first one. Now the engine's gone. 8!
This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. Come in, please.
This is Langham Field. Go ahead.
8 Army bombers in engagement with
Well,
the enemy.
it isn't.
Just keep going. Oh, that's Brianna.
This is awkward.
We can all hear you, Brianna.
The guy's dressed.
I don't know if Becca would have lines in this scene because I can't do Becca's lines because.
So I thought the placement, are you supposed to be up there or are you playing Amanda?
Oh, I'm just playing myself. I've been here the whole time, but I can definitely move if you'd like me to. Oh, I can
still
move.
on? No, it's not.
Yeah, I think you just.
Oh,
you
it
had
is
her
so-
there, but if
Let's try here for a second.
Got
I
it.
think I had the other cast doing this, and if I never give you this instruction, I'm sorry.
That's all good. I'm
I
cool with
think
that.
the next cue is yours. What's the next cue? After her is, which will be the other. Right? And then what? Yeah.
Got it.
Stay there for the moment, please.
Sounds good.
Brianna, can you talk for a second?
Oh my gosh. Oh. Hey.
Okay, thank you. Stop talking. All right, so start again from, go back to 2 Qs then, Stephen. Back one more. There, so right there, you're first, right? Okay, and by the way, and since we're stopped anyway, when you get in position, you have to lower that mic to yourself.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how.
It's down there.
This one is a quick release. It's very, very easy. All you do is push this little thing and it goes like that. And then you can talk into it based on your height. So
Oh, thank you.
really fall. All right, so start with your line.
This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. This is Bayonne, New Jersey, calling Langham Field. Come in, please.
This is Langham Field. Go ahead.
8 Army bombers in engagement with enemy tripod machines over Jersey Flats. Engines incapacitated by heat ray. All crashed. 1 enemy tripod machine destroyed. Enemy now discharging heavy black smoke in the direction of...
This is Newark, New Jersey. This is Newark, New Jersey. Warning, poisonous black smoke falls over Jersey marshes. Reaches South Street. Tell population to go into open areas. Automobiles use routes 7, 23, 24. Avoid congested areas. Smoke now pouring over Raymond Boulevard.
This is 2X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling 8X3R. Come in, please.
This is 8X3R. Coming back at 2X2L.
How's reception? How's reception? Okay? Please? Where are you, 8X3R? What's the matter? Where are you?
Good. I'm speaking from the roof of Broadcasting Building, New York City. The bells you hear are ringing to warn the people to evacuate the city as the Martians approach. Estimated in the last 2 hours, 3 million people have fled along the roads to the north. Hutchinson River Parkway still kept open for motor traffic. Avoid bridges to Long Island, all hopelessly jammed. All communication with Jersey Shore closed 10 minutes ago. No more defenses. Our army is wiped out. Artillery, Air Force, everything wiped out. This may be the last broadcast. We'll stay here until the end. People are holding service here below us. In the cathedral. Now we look down upon the harbor. All manner of boats, overloaded with fleeing population. Streets are all jammed. Noise and crowds like New Year's Eve in the city. Wait a minute. The enemy is now in sight above the palisades. Five great machines. First one is crossing the river. I can see it from here, wading the Hudson like a man wading through a brook. I have a bulletin. Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. One outside of Buffalo, Chicago, St. Louis, seem to be timed and spaced. Now the first machine reaches the shore. He stands, watching, looking over the city. His steel, cowlish head is even with the skyscrapers. He waits for the others. They rise like a line of new towers on the city's west side. Now they're lifting their metal hands. This is the end now. Smoke comes out. Black smoke, drifting over the city. People in the streets see it now. They run, thousands of them, towards the East River, dropping like rats. Now the smoke's spreading faster. It's reached Times Square. People try to run away from it, but it's no use. They're falling like flies. Now the smoke's crossing 6th Avenue. 5th Avenue. 100 yards away. It's 50 feet.
X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ. New York. Isn't there anyone on the air?
Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone?
You are listening to the CBS presentation of Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the Air in the original dramatization of War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. The performance will continue after a few minutes. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.
As I set these notes down on paper, I'm obsessed by the thought that I may be the last living man on Earth. I have been hiding in this house near Grover's Mill, a small island of daylight cut off by the black smoke from the rest of the world. All that happened before the arrival of these monstrous creatures in this world now seems part of another life, a life that has no continuity with the present, furtive existence of the lonely derelict who pencils these words on the back of some astronomical notes bearing the signature of Richard Pearson. I look down at my blackened hands, my torn shoes, my tattered clothes, and I try to connect them with a professor who lives at Princeton and who on the night of October 30th glimpsed through his telescope an orange splash of light on a distant planet. My wife, my colleagues, my students, my books, my observatory, my world. Where are they? Did they ever exist? Am I Richard Pearson? What day is it? Do days exist without calendars? Does time pass when there are no human hands left to wind the clocks? In writing down my daily life, I tell myself I shall preserve human history between the dark covers of this little book that was meant to record the movements of the stars. But to write, I must live, and to live, I must eat. I find moldy bread in the kitchen and an orange not too spoiled to swallow. I keep watch at the window. From time to time, I catch sight of a Martian above the black smoke. The smoke still holds the house in its black coil, but at length there's a hissing sound, and suddenly I see a Martian mounted on his machine, spraying the air with a jet of steam as if to dissipate the smoke. I watch in a corner as his huge metal legs nearly brush against the house. Exhausted by terror, I fall asleep. It's morning. Morning! Sun streams in the window. The black cloud of gas has lifted and the scorched meadows to the north look as though a black snowstorm has passed over them. I venture from the house. I make my way to a road. No traffic. Here and there, a wrecked car, baggage overturned, a blackened skeleton. I push on north. For some reason, I feel safer trailing these monsters than running away from them, and I keep a careful watch. I've seen the Martians feed. Should one of their machines appear over the top of the trees, I'm ready to fling myself flat on the earth. I come to a chestnut tree. October. Chestnuts are ripe. I fill my pockets. I must keep alive. 2 days I wander in a vague northerly direction through a desolate world. Finally, I notice a living creature, a small red squirrel in a beech tree. I stare at him in wonder. He stares back at me. I believe at that moment the animal and I shared the same emotion, the joy of finding another living being. North. I push on north. I find dead cows in a brackish field, and beyond the charred ruins of a dairy, the silo remains standing guard over the wasteland like a lighthouse deserted by the sea. Astride the silo perches a weathercock. The arrow points north. Next day I come to a city, a city vaguely familiar in its contours, yet its buildings strangely dwarfed and leveled off, as if a giant had sliced off its highest towers with a capricious swipe of his hand. I reached the outskirts. I found Newark, undemolished, but humbled by some whim of the advancing Martians. Presently, with an odd feeling of being watched, I caught sight of something crouching in the doorway. I made a step towards it. It rose up and it became a woman armed with a large knife.
Stop! Where'd you come from?
I come from many places. A long time ago, from Princeton.
Princeton, huh? That's near Grover's Mill.
Yeah.
Grover's Mill? There's no food here. This is my country. All this end of town, down to the river. There's only food for one. Which way are you going?
I don't know. I guess I'm looking for people.
What was that? Did you hear something just then?
No, only a bird. Huh. A live bird.
Yeah, you get to know that birds have shadows these days. Hey, we're in the open here. Let's climb the stairway here and talk.
Have you seen any Martians?
Nah, they've gone over to New York. At night, the sky is alive with their lights, just as if people were still living in it. By daylight, you can't see them. 5 days ago, a couple of them carried something big across the flats from the airport. I think they're learning how to fly.
To fly.
Yeah, fly!
Then it's all over for humanity. Stranger, there's still you and I, two of us left.
Yeah, they got themselves in solid. They wrecked the greatest country in the world. Those green stars, they're probably falling somewhere every night. We've only lost one machine. There isn't anything to do. We're done. We're licked.
Stranger, where were you? You're in a uniform.
Yeah, what's left of it? I was in the militia. National Guard? That's good! There wasn't any war. Any more than there's war between men and ants.
Yes, but we're edible ants. I found that out. What'll they do to us?
I've thought it all out. Right now, we're caught as we're wanted. The Martian only has to go a few miles to get a crowd on the run. But they won't keep doing that. They'll begin catching us systematic-like, keeping the best and storing us in cages and things. They haven't begun on us yet.
Not begun.
Not begun. All that's happened so far is because we don't have sense enough to keep quiet, bothering them with guns and such stuff and losing our heads and rushing off in crowds. Now, instead of our rushing around blind, we've got to fix ourselves up. Fix ourselves up according to the way things are now. Cities, nation, civilization, progress, done.
What is there to live for?
Well, there won't be any more concerts for a million years or so, and no nice little dinners at restaurants. If it's amusement you're after, I guess the game is up.
What is there left?
Life! That's what! I want to live. Yeah, and so do you. We're not going to be exterminated, and I don't mean to be caught either. Tamed and fattened and bred like an ox.
What are you going to do?
I'm going on right under their feet. I've got a plan. We are finished. We don't know enough. We've barely done anything to get a chance. And we've got to live and learn plenty before we've got a chance. See? I've thought it all out, see?
Line?
My shirt is open. Sorry, guys. It's fine. It's just a Leo.
Huh?
Why?
You're threatening
It
me
feels
with
more
a dull
comfortable
edge.
this way.
Oh, I thought it all out. See.
Okay, so hook up like a
Thought
smile.
it all out.
Okay.
Go on.
Okay. Well, wait, now I messed up. Well, we don't,
Tell me more.
Well, we're not all meant to be made for wild beasts, and that's what it's got to be. That's why I watched you. All these little office workers that used to live in these houses, they'd be no good. They hadn't any stuff in them. They used to run off to work. I've seen hundreds of them, running to catch their commuter's train in the morning, afraid they'd be canned if they didn't. Running back at night, afraid they won't be in time for dinner.
lives insured, and a little invested in case of accidents. Yeah, and on Sundays worried about the hereafter. The Martians will be a godsend for those guys. Nice, roomy cages, good food, careful breeding, no worries. Yeah, in about a week or so, chasing about the fields on empty stomachs, they'll come and be glad to be caught.
You've thought it all out, haven't you?
Sure, you bet I have. That isn't all. These Martians, they're gonna make pets of some of them, train them to do tricks. Who knows? Get sentimental over the pet boy who grew up and had to be killed. Yeah, and some, maybe they'll train to hunt us.
No, that's impossible. No living human being.
Yes, they will. There's men who will do it gladly. One of them ever comes after me, why?
And in the meantime, you and I and others like us, where are we to live when the Martians own the Earth?
I've got it all figured out. We'll live underground. I was thinking about the sewers. Under New York, there are miles and miles of them. The main ones are big enough for anybody. And there's cellars, vaults, underground storerooms, railway tunnels, subways. You begin to see, huh? We'll get a bunch of strong fellas together. No weak ones. That rubbish out.
As you meant me to go.
Well, I gave you a chance, didn't I?
We won't quarrel about that. Go on.
Yeah, well, we'll get a bunch of safe places to stay in. And then we'll get a bunch of books. All the books we can. Science books. That's where men like you come in, see? We'll raid the museums. We'll even spy on the Martians. It may not be so much we have to learn before. Listen, just imagine this. 4 or 5 of their own fighting machines suddenly start off. Heat rays right and left, and not a Martian in them. Not a Martian in them, see? Oh gosh, not a Martian in them, see? But humans! Humans who've learned the way how. It may even be in our time. Gee! Imagine having one of them lovely things with a heat ray right and free. Oh gosh, what I would do with one of those. Yeah, sorry. We'd bring everybody.
Okay.
I'm so bad at improv. We'd bring, no, we turn it on Martians. We turn it on humans. We'd bring everybody down on their knees.
That's your plan.
Yes. You, me, and a few more of us. We'd own the world.
I see.
Hey, what's the matter? Where are you going?
Not to your will. Bye, stranger. After parting with the artilleryman, artillery woman, I came to the last Holland tunnel. I entered that silent tube, anxious to know the fate of the great city on the other side of the Hudson. Cautiously, I came out of the tunnel and made my way up Canal Street. I reached 14th Street, and there again were black powder and several bodies, and an evil, ominous smell from the gratings of the cellars of some of the houses. I wandered up through the 30s and 40s. I stood alone on Times Square. I caught sight of a lean dog running down 7th Avenue with a piece of dark brown meat in his jaws and a pack of starving mongrels at his heels. He made a wide circle around me, as though he feared I might prove a fresh competitor. I walked up Broadway in the direction of that strange powder, past silent shop windows, displaying their mute wares to empty sidewalks, past the Capitol Theater, silent, dark, past a shooting gallery, where a row of empty guns faced an arrested line of wooden ducks. Near Columbus Circle, I noticed models of 1939 motor cars in the showrooms facing empty streets. From over the top of the General Motors building, I watched a flock of birds circling the sky. I hurried on. Suddenly, I caught sight of the hood of a Martian machine, standing somewhere in Central Park, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. An insane idea. I rushed recklessly across Columbus Circle and into the park. I climbed a small hill above the pond at 60th Street, and from there I could see, standing in a silent row along the mall, 19 of those great metal titans, their cowls empty, their steel arms hanging listlessly by their sides. I looked in vain for the monsters that inhabit those creatures. Suddenly, my eyes were attracted to an immense flock of blackbirds that hovered directly below me. They circled to the ground, and there before my eyes, stark and silent, lay the Martians, with the hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shards of flesh from their dead bodies. Later, when their bodies were examined in the laboratories, it was found that they were killed by the putrefactive and disease bacteria against which their systems were unprepared, slain after all man's defenses had failed, by the humblest thing that God in his wisdom had put upon this earth. Before the cylinder fell, there was a general persuasion that through all the deep of the space, no life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further. Dim and wonderful is this vision I have conjured up in my mind of life, spreading slowly from this little seedbed of the solar system throughout the inanimate vastness of sidereal space. But that's a remote dream. It may be that the destruction of the Martians is only a reprieve. To them, and not to us, is the future ordained, perhaps. Strange now it seems to sit in my peaceful study at Princeton, writing this last chapter of the record begun at a deserted farm in Grover's Mill. Strange to watch children playing in the streets. Strange to see young people strolling on the green, where the new spring grass heals the last black scars of a bruised earth. Strange to watch the sightseers enter the museum, where the disassembled parts of a Martian machine are kept on public view. Strange when I recall the time when I first saw it. Bright and clean cut, hard and silent, under the dawn of that last great day.
Ladies and gentlemen, Orson Welles here, breaking character to assure you that War of the Worlds has no further significance than as the holiday offering it was initially intended to be. The Mercury Theater's radio version of dressing up in a sheet, jumping out of a bush, and saying boo. You will be relieved, I hope, to learn that we didn't mean it, and that both institutions are still open for business. Line. Oh, okay. So goodbye and good night, everybody. But please remember, for the next day or so, the terrible lesson which you've learned tonight. That grinning, glowing, globular invader of your living room is merely an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch. So if your doorbell rings tonight and nobody's there, that was no Martian. It's Halloween.
Tonight, the Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations coast to coast have brought you The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, the 17th in its weekly series of dramatic broadcasts featuring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on air. Next week, we present a dramatization of 3 famous short stories. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System.